From drivers spending time with families and reviving their hobbies to a bunch of rule changes ready to kickstart the new season, there's a lot that goes on over the winter break between two seasons. Here's what you should know about the Formula One off-season. It's not just the drivers at work, even though they're practically the face of Formula One. There's a whole team of Formula One constructors who are some of the most dedicated and skilled engineers in the world. And even around the off-season, they're still designing and building new cars for the upcoming season. It's almost like they're never able to catch a break. They're busy doing all sorts of things, and that includes creating stereotypes, testing a bunch of different materials and components, along with a few adjusted ones, based on whatever happened the previous season, and so much more. It's just a very complex and time-consuming process, to say the least. But it's exactly what keeps the team competitive. They keep upgrading everything. Not only that, but there are also some collaborations going on with other sponsors and partners. And that's a super important aspect of the entire off-season. There's financial support, branding, exposure, all the things they need before kickstarting the new season. Of course, there are also a bunch of events and appearances, along with preseason testing to fine-tune the car's setup. But most important of all, the pressure's still low right now, so they can still get some time off to rest and recharge after a stressful season in the first place. But they're not the only ones who need some rest. Everyone's favorite F1 drivers take some time off to rebuild and refocus too. After a stressful season chasing that championship title, these drivers need some time away from the wheel. Off-season's mostly the time when they go back to their families and loved ones, spending some time off. And let's be real, it's a well-deserved break to say the least. Plus, they get to relive their old hobbies outside of the Formula One grid, like skiing maybe? And let me just say, we've got a bunch of drivers with different interests, so it's fun to see them go back to their old selves for a change. But that's not all they do. If anything, Formula One's no less than a competitive and demanding sport, and these F1 drivers train like athletes just to be able to race in a Formula One car. I mean, don't you see how fast they go? With all the G-force and the speed, they need to train themselves to withstand the pressure, and so they spend a good chunk of their off-season in the gym, training harder every single day for the upcoming season. But that's something that comes with a sport. Having said that, there's a lot of drama that goes on behind the scenes too. For instance, FIA President Mohammed made a bunch of misjudged statements over the winter. Clearly, the politics are already in full swing. Not only that, but he also put a few limitations on the way drivers are going to express any sort of controversial opinions, like their personal or political views. In fact, he'd rather have them not present them at all in the first place. And if that wasn't enough, he also announced that he's going to take a step back from the everyday management of Formula One in 2023. Meanwhile, everyone's wondering how tight these regulations are going to be, specifically on discussing controversial opinions. On top of that, there might be a new addition to the sport. That's right, they're discussing the possibility of an 11th team in Formula One. Specifically, the Andretti family is hoping to join the grid in 2026. But Formula One and the existing 10 teams aren't big fans of the possibility. If anything, they're not ready to dilute their revenue stream for a new team on the grid. On the other hand, if Andretti somehow manages to bring a big enough anti-dilution fee, it might change a few minds. Having said that, from cutting curfews to grid penalties, there are a couple of rule changes for the upcoming season that are sure to change the game. Most of them are going to be the same as 2022, but a few technical and sporting changes are going to make all the difference. For one, they raised floor edges by 15 millimeters, diffuser throat height, and even the diffuser edge stiffness. In theory, these changes are ideal to make the whole issue of porpoising a thing of the past. So if it works out as it should, maybe the teams aren't going to have that big of a problem. But that's not all. Formula One values its drivers' safety more than you think, and major crashes in any season call for changes. After the frightening Zhou crash, the roll hoop needs to have a rounded top. Well, it's supposed to reduce the chances of it digging into the ground during an accident like that. Plus, they're also reducing the minimum car weight even further. With the new era of Formula One, they're implementing a 2-kilogram decrease in 2023. So let's just say designers are going to have to shave off a lot more weight than they expected for their latest challengers. But that's enough about cars. If you didn't know, F1 is also cutting paddock working hours. As for the penalty confusion, drivers who have over 15 cumulative grid position penalties are going to start behind any other classified driver. So their position's going to be determined according to their qualifying classification. Yeah, the upcoming season's going to be pretty rough. Not to mention mention some pretty important people are being replaced. Ferrari's team boss Binotto is officially replaced by Frederick. And let's just say the team's ready to taste success as he prepares for his first campaign at the team. And this was bound to happen. After all, everyone knew Binotto was leaving after he publicly confirmed over the winter break. It turns out he was just patiently waiting for Frederick to complete the transition from Alfa Romeo to Ferrari, which, by the way, is a huge jump in itself. Although I definitely say this was way quicker than I expected. But Frederick's getting the hang of things around here, and he's ready to end the championship drought that goes all the way back to 2008. Not to mention, he's already got his competition cut out for him. After all, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton are hungry for the championship title. On the one hand, there's Max, who won 2 championship titles back-to-back, and that left Hamilton facing the first winless season of his entire F1 career.
I think RB18 has seen the biggest team effort in the history of our team. It's testimony to the long hours and the hard work that's gone in behind the scenes in the factory and on the campus in Milton Keynes that we're here today.
On the other hand, after his controversial Abu Dhabi Grand Prix win back in 2021, the two have become rivals chasing the championship title. And after another year of being left behind, Hamilton's ready to jump back into the grid with more energy than ever before. So right in the middle of the fight between two top teams, Red Bull, who's already dominating over the past 2 seasons, and Mercedes, do you think Ferrari could fit in somewhere? I wouldn't be too sure. But if there's one thing about Formula One, it's that the sport's pretty unpredictable. So you really can't count your predictions for too long.
It was a really good lap, really on the limit. But yeah, another qualifying tomorrow morning, so I hope we can reproduce that, and then 2 races. So still a lot of work to do, but really good stuff.
In fact, Frederick claims the team's got everything they need to win. So it's only a matter of time before fans see which team's ready to dominate the others throughout the season. Because Max has got his eye on his 3rd consecutive championship, but Hamilton's record-breaking 8th World Championship title's going to be a game changer. Having said that, there are a bunch of other contenders chasing the title. After all, F1 is all about the competitive driver, am I right? Well, that's all you've got to know about what goes on in the Formula One off-season.